What's going on, everybody? This is Nifuji here, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video, I am going to be running around in the War Within beta on the max level server on my Resto Druid to go over why I think raid resto healing in the War Within is going to be incredibly boring and subpar compared to any of the other healers. This is going to be more of a discussion video, so I might be yapping and rambling a bit. Feel free to leave how you feel about my comments in the comment section, and we can debate there. But yeah, really today, the bulk of this video is going to be quickly going over the talent tree. So we have a couple things to go over. The first being the fact that our talent trees themselves, both our Resto and Druid talent trees, were shifted around a bit. And I'll kind of go over that in a little bit with the decisions I made in filling this out as if we were going into raid. And then we're only going to be going over Keeper of the Grove hero talents in this video because I genuinely cannot see a universe where Wildstalker is used for raiding. It is so clearly intended for Mythic Plus. And again, if you've seen the other videos on this channel, I focus heavily on raiding over Mythic Plus. So this video is going over why I think Resto Druid in raid is going to feel very mediocre at best. So before we jump into our Keeper of the Grove talents, I want to quickly go over the two different talent trees and what changed. What you're seeing right now is basically as close as I could get to the current Dragonflight Season 4 raid healing talent build. You're going to see a lot of the talents that are still here or that weren't touched I took here, and I will get to what I changed when I got there. So the only things that really changed here compared to Season 4 of Dragonflight is we're forced to take a couple extra talents in like the Bear column in order to unlock our defensive abilities like Well-Honed Instincts, Matted Fur, and Wild Charge. As well as in-cap roar. So in order to get to these four, we had to kind of take Frenzied Regen, Iron Fur into the Thick Hide, which we want, and then break down this path to get to some of our utility and defensives. Going down the middle path, we have very similar talents that we have in current WoW and retail. And we curve down here in order to pick up Improved Stampeding Roar. This is typically a talent you want in raid. If for some reason you don't need it, you could definitely swap this out and change it to something else. The only real weird thing here, unless I'm just being stupid and forgetting how retail works, is that we take Mass Entanglement and then we're forced to take Soothe or Cyclone in order to get Stampeding Roar. That's a little weird. I can't even remember a time that I casted Cyclone or Soothe in a raid encounter, like, ever in recent memory, so it's strange that we have to take one to get Stampeding Roar, but there's really not a universe where you go into a raid encounter without Roar. That's like half the reason we're brought as a Druid. So those are the main changes you'll see there. The right side of the talent tree is pretty straightforward. You're taking a lot of the same talents we have in retail in order to get to Innervate, which is definitely another non-negotiable talent. I will say that with the left side of this tree, there's going to be a lot of flexibility to do stuff like this. Get rid of this to take Star Surge, or get rid of Improved Stampeding Roar to get higher damage, or to get, you know, Nature's Vigil or whatever. So there's going to be a lot more flexibility now than there is, purely because we kind of have to go through the bottom of all three trees. So yeah, I would say as far as the Druid side goes, I'm not super upset about it, actually. I know there's a lot of changes being made, but this is not that bad. This is definitely manageable. We get all the utility that we still want from raid. All the utility I currently have in Dragonflight when we were doing like Mythic Raz the other day, I have right now with this talent build, so not bad. Now getting over to the Resto side, this is where we have some pretty heavy changes. So just to quickly go over it before I go down the tree, the first big change is this new talent here, which I'll get to in a little bit. They also moved Flourish from this side of the tree here, and it's now in a choice node with Photosynthesis, which is another talent that we always take. And they also got rid of the talent that makes Rejuvenation have a chance to duplicate itself, which kind of sucks. So those were the three big changes, along with I think a couple different shuffles. So I'm just going to draw a line straight through the middle here. Everything above this line is the exact same in terms of talents that we're picking. They're the exact same talents. This bottom little chunk is where stuff gets a little tricky. So just like in retail, we're going to go down this path here with the Grove Guardians, take Incarn, and we're going to take this, which makes the Grove Guardian spawn. We're going to want to take that talent still because of when I get to the Creeper of the Grove, you'll see there's a ton of Grove Guardian synergy. And now on the right side, since Flourish is gone, we have two different choices here. The first choice is that we're going with Verdant Infusion or Prosperity. So either 2 Swiftmend charges or Swiftmend extends the HOTS rather than taking one away, which is what I went with for this hypothetical build. Then we're going to go into the Thriving Vegetation, which is our new talent. 2 levels of it makes it so that Rejuve instantly heals your target for 30% of its total periodic effect, and regrowth duration is increased by 6 seconds. In doing that, we get to keep Reforestation, which is our Tree of Life proc on every third Swiftmend cast. Now, starting with this talent, in testing it so far, obviously I don't have a raid to test it in and the numbers are all over the place. I don't really understand why they felt like they needed to add this talent in. A lot of Resto Druids, like healing, comes from ramping, so the raid is going to be at full health or extremely healthy while you're throwing like 15 rejuves out. So I don't really understand why there needed to be a on-cast heal, but I will say in situations in raid encounters where there's a lot of rot damage and then you're ramping through the rot damage for a huge tick, you're going to get more throughput on rejuve, as well as if for whatever reason you ramp a little late, or you know, if there's unexpected damage and you're just throwing rejuves out, you'll get some more throughput. So I, I don't think this is going to be a crazy noticeable talent, but you know, it might be interesting. Now, going to this other option that we could use to get to reforestation. And this is kind of where stuff gets a little weird, and I will re-reference this in a second when we get to the Keeper of the Grove talent. We could take these two new talents to get into reforestation. What this does, Call of the Elder Druid, makes it so that when you shift into cat form or when you activate balance form with Star Surge, once a minute for 10 seconds, a large percentage of the damage you do with Wrath or Starfire is going to go into healing. So you'll see with this talent here, while Heart of the Wild is active, which again, that's 10 seconds every minute if you're using this properly, Wrath and Shred transfer 150% of their damage, and Starfire and Swipe transfer 100% of their damage into healing onto a nearby ally. So that could be useful in scenarios where you don't really want to do a huge ramp, it's just kind of small damage, or if there's like no damage going on other than to a tank during like an intermission phase, you could use this to just get some extra damage and still keep them topped up without having to use a ton of mana. Now, a cool synergy with these talents is that I typically run Master Shapeshifter, and a nice change to Druid in this War Within build right now is that we don't have access to Boomy Form anymore. And so that means we get mana back from Master Shapeshifter just being in our human form using Wrath. So that means when there is low damage, if we proc this and we're getting healing through this, we're also getting a ton of mana back as well, which is nice. And this might not be the build anymore. We might go back to using Liveliness if mana isn't too big of an issue. So this could all be for naught, but that's just some theory crafting. All right, now into Keeper of the Grove. Personally, I'm not super excited about Keeper of the Grove because I don't like Grove Guardians very much. I don't like becoming a pet healer. I miss the times where Flourish and Trank were like the bulk of the reason you brought a Resto Druid. They had good ramp healing, and then they had this insane way to extend the rest of their heals out, and every time Trank was used, it was very noticeable, right? That's the Druid I miss, but unfortunately, we're stuck with Grove Guardians, and Keeper of the Grove just leans into that so heavily, right? So I'm just going to jump right into this. So the first ability of our node here is Dream Surge, which makes it so that Grove Guardians cause your next targeted heal to create 3 Dream Petals near that target that you cast it on, healing up to 3 nearby allies for 68k. Ignore the numbers for now because we're in beta, and it stacks up to 3 charges. So to show you what that looks like, you cast Grove Guardians. You see I have 30 seconds to use Dream Surge. I'm going to use a self-heal, and you see these flowers pop up, and when they bloom, they heal people around me. I'm going to use my cursor as an example. This will only reach people out to about here, around me. The range for efflorescence is larger than the heal that this does. So just keep that in mind. People have to be closer than the outer ring of an efflo to benefit from that heal, which makes it kind of weird. But I don't think there's going to be a ton of intentional use there. It's probably just going to be extra healing throughout a fight. Onto the first row, we have Treants of the Moon. Your Grove Guardians are going to cast Moonfire on nearby targets about once every 6 seconds. We're going to get 5% maximum mana. This is kind of whatever because unless I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure there was a patch note that going into the War Within, Druids are getting another mana nerf, so I don't really think this is going to feel that crazy, but maybe it will. Any mana is good mana. Then we have Protective Growth. Your regrowth protects you, reducing the damage you take by 8% while regrowth is on you. Kind of weird, but I guess that just means if there's big damage coming up, you want to cast a regrowth on yourself for 8% DR, especially if you have clear casting procs. That also plays into this talent here, which makes it so that it's increased by 6 seconds. So you'll see if I just self-cast a regrowth right now, it's on me for 18 seconds. So 18 seconds of 8% DR. If you were to choose to try and keep track of that, that's pretty good. Into our first choice node, we have Power of Nature. Your Grove Guardians increase the healing of Rejuve, Efflo, and Life Bloom by 5% while active. I opted to go with the other one, which is your Grove Guardian's Nourish and Swiftman spells are also going to apply a minor Cenarian Ward that heals the target for 78,000 over 8 seconds the next time they take damage. Reason being, even though we have a high uptime on Grove Guardians, I kind of feel like this is better. But again, there's really no way to test this right now, so either one of these I could see being the correct choice. But for now, I just clicked on Durability of Nature. The next one we have is that casting Swiftman increases your haste by 8% for 6 seconds. Again, not really something you're going to be looking into. This just plays into your natural flow. So you're going to throw some rejuves out, you're going to Swiftmend into a Wild Growth, and now you have 6 seconds of increased haste, which is going to help with the end of your ramp. On to our next choice node. The one I opted for is Grove's Inspiration, so Wrath and Starfire damage is increased by 10%, while Regrowth, Wild Growth, and Swiftmend healing is increased by 6%. The other option is that Reforestation grants Tree of Life for 2 additional seconds. I'm not sure which one of these is going to be better, but to me, 2 extra seconds basically means you can cast 2 more rejuves in tree form, so I just opted to go for this, which is just a static 6% increase in those healing spells at all times. Our next node, I went with Bounteous Bloom. Your Grove Guardian's healing is increased by 20%. In that same patch note I mentioned earlier, where Druid mana is getting nerfed going into War Within, I'm pretty sure the mana cost of Grove Guardians went up and the healing is going to get decreased. So having 20% extra healing go back to them gets them closer to being how strong they feel currently, I'd imagine. So that's why I went with that. Whereas the other option makes it so their cooldown's reduced by 3 seconds. Either one of those could be the right choice. Again, gonna have to wait to actually have better testing on that. Final choice node, Power of the Dream. Healing spells cast with Dream Surge generate an additional Dream Petal. So that ability I showed at the start typically only has 2 of those flowers pop up. If you take this choice node, it has 3. The other option, which actually might end up being the better option, is that the time elapsed while your major abilities are available to use is subtracted from that ability's cooldown after the next time you use it, up to 15 seconds. This only works on Nature Swiftness, Incarn, and Convoke the Spirits. So Tree of Life is a 3-minute cooldown. If you were to leave it off cooldown and then use it, for long enough, then you can have a 2-minute 45-second cooldown rather than 3-minute. And if you were to stack that with this talent, you're getting like almost a 2-minute 20-second Tree of Life cooldown if you were to stack them versus 3 minutes, so that's pretty cool. So I'm not sure which one of these is going to be this. Now for the stupidest talent in the entire tree, and I don't know why it exists. The first half of it talent is completely fine. The second half is really stupid. So every 5 regrowths that you cast is going to make your next Wrath, Starfire, or Entangling Roots instant and increase its damage by 100%. Cool. So just naturally you're being rewarded for healing, and Wrath will glow on your bars when that proc is up. Insta-cast, free damage. We take that, right? Now the second half is that every 5 Star Surges you cast makes your next Regrowth or Entangling Roots instant. I have no idea how this is even a talent. That is probably the worst talent that I've seen. So in order to benefit from that, you need to use a 15,000 mana spell 5 times, so almost a full minute across the course of a fight, right? If you were to cast it off cooldown, almost a full 60 seconds will elapse, and you get this for free. Sorry, you get this as an insta-cast. That's it. It still costs mana. It's not doing increased healing. It's just an insta-cast. So I think that talent is trash. This needs to be reworked. If that regrowth were to be instant or heal for like 200% or something, cool, but really there's no reason to stop healing to cast 5 Star Surges just to have an instant cast regrowth. I think that's stupid. And the final thing we have is Harmony of the Grove. Each of your Grove Guardians increases your healing done by 3% while active. So again, another static, hey, you're just going to play the game naturally and do more healing with like this ebb and flow of your ramp. And that's pretty much it. So I know that was a lot of rambling, but I kind of wanted to go through everything. Now to kind of talk about it all in cohesion. Really, we get the same amount of utility that we have in current Dragonflight with the build I have on the left, so that's not too bad. Really, where the boring kind of mediocre comment comes from is that we're just playing around Grove Guardians. We're almost guaranteed to not have Flourish anymore because they're making us choose between that and Photosynthesis. Tranquility did not get buffed. Tree of Life did not get buffed, which means all of our big raid cooldowns are going to feel pretty mediocre. They're not getting any crazy changes to them. And really the only actual change in gameplay through all these talents is that our Grove Guardians are going to give us a healing proc that is going to do some healing to people who are pretty close to the target that we healed with that proc. That is it. Everything else is a static. You heal a little bit more, you get a little bit of haste when you use a healing spell, which just plays into how druids ramp naturally. So what basically you can expect every time you ramp, at the end of the ramp, you'll be healing for a little bit more, and you'll have a little bit more haste. So that just means, you know, you're going to get rewarded more for ramping and then using your abundant stacks to spam regrowths. And that's pretty much it. I think it sounds really boring. I think it really sucks that we're not going to have Flourish anymore. Our only two big cooldowns are going to be Trank and Tree of Life, and those aren't getting buffed in any way to be stronger than they are now. So Druid is basically going to feel the exact same as it does in Season 4, but with potentially worse numbers. It's really hard to tell how the numbers are going to look when we don't have raid testing yet. But yeah, I've played Druid for years. I'm not trying to be too doomer about it, but it just seems really boring as far as raid healing goes. The talents seem really boring and uncreative. They're just static numbers, and I'm not a big fan. And I can tell you just from my short amount of time testing out Disc Priest and testing out Resto Shaman for raid, those look far more engaging. Your gameplay is actually drastically changed with the hero talents in a way where Resto Shaman is looking incredibly overpowered going into the War Within pending number changes, and Disc Priest looks basically as strong as it does now, but you're going to be rewarded much more for doing your rotation properly and doing your damage properly with these crazy new procs and ability changes, whereas Druid just gets this. And yeah, that is my comprehensive look as to why I think Resto Druid raid healing in the War Within needs another pass. Blizzard, please. This is ass. Please. Please, Blizzard.